very warm welcome to our viewers. Coursera presents a thought leadership conversation on advancing higher education in association with ET Education. Now, higher education is undergoing a significant transformation propelled by digital innovation, stronger industry academia partnerships, and the rising need for future ready talent. Industries are reimagining their approach, embracing experiential learning, micro credentials, and cutting edge technologies such as Gen AI and data science. Well, today we have the opportunity to gain insights from two visionary leaders. Please join me in welcoming them. We have with us Shreevats Jaipuria, Vice Chairman, Seth M.R. Jaipuria Schools and Jaipuria Institute of Management.
Thank you.
Also join me in welcoming Ramya Srinivasan, Director, Customer Success, Coursera. Now let's hear from them on how they are reshaping the future of education and driving innovation across institutions. Let me take the first question across to you, Shrivats. The Future of Jobs Report 2025 by the World Economic Forum highlights that nearly 39% of core skills will change by 2030. How are Indian higher education institutions such as yours adapting their curricula to stay aligned with these rapidly evolving skill requirements?
Thank you, Shilpa. That's a great question to start us off. As you know, Jaipuria works in the field of management education, MBA education, or PGDM, as we call it in India. And the MBA or business education in general is a generalist field. So we actually train students to work across industries, across different roles. And so this is a program that I think is well poised to take care of the changing skill requirements that are there in industry. I think there are three aspects to this. The first is that, as educators, as young professionals, we cannot wish away artificial intelligence. It's here to stay, and it is revolutionizing the way that business is conducted. So at Jaipuria, we are focused on integrating AI skills as part of the curriculum. We have started a Center for Artificial Intelligence, which we call AI Labs. And that is working along with our faculty members to integrate AI-based assessments across the length and breadth of our curriculum, which means students will get used to solving problems using AI. It's not only about getting a ready-made answer from AI, but actually using it as a tool, seeing what are the gaps, having multi-shots of prompting, seeing what tool to use for what problem, so on and so forth. So I think one is embedding AI skills and the ability to use AI across a variety of different problems is a core skill that we are trying to adapt. The second is teamwork. In a world that is rapidly changing with technology, the world is still going to be inhabited by human beings. So whether it's your team at a company, whether it's your leadership, whether it's customers, suppliers, as a person going into industry, you're always going to be working with people. And again, here we put a lot of emphasis on people working in teams, working in projects, both inside the classroom for assessment, but also outside the classroom when they organize events, functions, a lot of student-led activities. And I think that is a core skill that you take from Jaipuria. Thirdly, I think it's very important to understand that written communication is being slightly democratized. So, people will always be able to check the quality of their written work. Of course, written communication is important, but oral communication is going to be more important in coming times because that's something that AI is not replacing for the moment. Never say never is what I've learned, but for the moment, oral communication is here to stay. So we are putting a lot of emphasis on getting students to speak up in the classroom, do presentations, do vivas, be able to discuss and argue their point of view, do group discussions. So I think these are the three things that we at Jaipuria are looking at: integrating artificial intelligence and getting students used to using artificial intelligence, working in teams, and oral communication.
You were talking about how you have woven AI into your curricula and how it's a very significant transformation that AI has made to education. And especially with Gen AI and data science among the fastest growing fields globally, how can academia now meaningfully integrate these emerging tech into teaching and assessment frameworks as well?
Yeah, so I think I covered part of this in my first answer, but I think it's about faculty learning AI and learning what are the gaps that, there where human intervention is needed. I think we live in a world now where the student in some senses comes as an AI native. Being younger, it's more natural to them. So we are putting in a lot of efforts to train our faculty, educate them about the different AI tools that are out there. What are the use cases of AI that can be used in the classroom, and what is the human intervention that is required to use this tool. Eventually, we have to use AI as a tool to make a human productivity better and not as a replacement for human productivity. So our assessments are completely changing, I would say, 180 degrees, right? Now you're talking about assessments where we are, in some of the assessments, allowing students to use artificial intelligence, but asking them, how did you prompt, or what is the answers that AI gave? How did you improve on the answers? How did you question the assumptions that AI might have made while doing this? Do you agree with the assumptions or do you not agree with the assumptions? So when you are using AI, it's important to look at, what are the factors that AI is considering, and use it as a tool on top of human intelligence, not as a replacement of human intelligence. The other thing I would like to say here is that it's not that all assessment is going to be replaced by AI. We are still going to have some pen and paper assessments. Actually, in some ways, we are going back to this because you need students to have a fundamental knowledge base uh, in order for them to be able to question the output that they are getting in AI. So we are seeing that some final pen and paper exams, or they may be digitalized exams, but without the use of AI, in-class exams are actually coming back in some way, because you want students to be able to recollect information without always having AI, and we, as institutions, we want to be able to test that they have the ability to question the assumptions made by AI.
You say pen and paper, now it's almost nostalgic. It has vintage value almost in, as an assessment or even as a written form. So I think it's important that we keep cultivating that skill so that our handwriting doesn't deteriorate too much. You just mentioned AI, and I'll go across to Ramya with that. AI has made such a huge transformation in education, and in your experience working across industry and academia, what is this sort of significant shift that you are seeing in how institutions and employers are responding to the evolving skills landscape?
Thanks for the question, Shilpa. Actually, I agree with all the points that Shreevats just mentioned, and it's becoming like one of the key trends that we are seeing in digital transformation of higher education. One is, of course, that the industry academia boundaries are becoming more and more permeable these days because a lot of industry eligible, credit eligible content is entering the university programs, and Gen AI is one of those technologies that is powering this shift. More recently, there is a heavy focus on using generative AI for hyper personalized skill based training. And this has now become a very core skill that's required by the industry. There are enough news items out there to talk about how businesses across different sectors are adopting Gen AI. And therefore, this has now become like a core requirement for skills in graduates who are emerging out of the university system. And in fact, when we spoke to employers in a recently published micro credentials report that we released earlier this year, we found that employers are willing to give around 10 to 15% higher CTC to a student who has an industry micro credential than one who has just a degree without an industry micro credential. And to take that further one notch, companies are willing to hire graduates who have lesser overall experience, but they have a Gen AI skill or credential, than to hire graduates who have greater experience, but they don't have a Gen AI skill. So when Shreevats talks about embedding AI into the way students learn, helping them to understand how to use Gen AI, I think it is one of the most forward-looking moves that you are making in terms of inculcating Gen AI into the curriculum. But of course, the question is how can institutions continue to design these kinds of scalable, career aligned degrees while keeping it agile? And at Coursera, we work with more than 120 industry partners who co-create with us very job role aligned pathways and credentials. Of course, in India itself, we have many industry partners who offer their credentials on Coursera. We have close to 8 industry partners today and 18 university partners who offer their credentials on the Coursera platform. And the shift that we are seeing from them is the focus on generative AI as well, where they are saying that we will create these credentials which are carrying skills and evaluations on how to use Gen AI as a skill. And then you can embed these credentials into the university degree program. So that way, institutions are also able to partner with Coursera and leverage our content and credentials to keep their curricula agile.
That's very interesting and interesting stat that you mentioned about the requirement of micro credentials here today and how they're valued by industries. I'll go back to Shreevats now. Shreevats, you mentioned how you are making sure that you have human-centric capabilities that have been woven into the student experience. I'm sure the employers as well from the industries are looking for skills like resilience, creative thinking, and lifelong learning, and these skills have been emphasized. Now, how can institutions embed these human centric capabilities into the campus culture as well?
Absolutely. Great question, Shilpa. Thank you. So I think there are two or three aspects of this, right? One I spoke about already is embedding team-based assessment. And many times institutions stay away from team-based assessments because they feel that they are imperfect or, they don't measure exactly what one person has done. But actually the real world is imperfect, right? We can't succeed alone at work. We have codependencies. So it's not always about just perfectly measuring the student. Actually, you have to get them used to the imperfection of life through working in teams, assessing in teams as well. So that's one aspect of it. The second aspect at Jaipuria, we have a program that we call mentorship as well as an individual development plan. So students actually work with a faculty mentor and an individual mentor to understand themselves, because it's not, you can really work well in teams, understand other people if you understand yourself and you understand what are your blind spots, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what is your temperament like. It's very hard to understand how you, if you don't understand how you react to situations, it's very hard to see your biases. So actually at Jaipuria we place a lot of emphasis on understanding yourself, on through mentorship, through having an individual development plan for yourself, through seeing where you are today and where you would like to be in 2 years, reviewing it after a year before you go to your summer internship program. Then once you come back, what are the skills you have learned? How has your temperament changed? So I think that's there. The third aspect is skills that are at the cusp of industry, like whether it's entrepreneurship, design thinking, understanding society through courses in liberal arts. Now each of our students may not become an entrepreneur, but the skills of entrepreneurship, I would say, are important to every student. How do you solve problems? How do you find what is the issue? So anytime that you're going to get a manager role, you're going to have to show entrepreneurship, or as they say, entrepreneurship. So I would say that we address it through these three aspects that I spoke about: working in teams, understanding yourself, as well as academic curriculum on entrepreneurship, on design thinking, on liberal arts, to understand how, to understand people in a context that is just a little bit away from marketing or finance, or to understand people as in order to solve their problems.
That's a fantastic value addition that you're making for students there. I think not just making them industry ready in these aspects, but I think these are all skills that any individual needs to have when stepping out into the real world from an institution. But speaking about the industry academia collaboration is increasingly becoming a necessity and not just an advantage. What models or partnerships have worked well in your institutions to bridge the employability gap? And what are some of the challenges that you're facing in sustaining them?
Yeah, thank you. So I think one of the trends that we see changing is that industry partners who usually used to come for placement actually want to spend much more time with the student. We see the importance of the summer internship project, which happens between the first and the second year, increasing tremendously. The number of pre-placement offers coming out of the summer internship project are also increasing tremendously. So actually now we need to prepare our students at the end of year one, because there's a higher likelihood that the organization they choose at the end of year one to do their SIP or summer internship in is the organization that they're going to land up after year two for their final placement as well. So I think the seriousness with which summer internships are done, both from the perspective of industry as well as from the perspective of our students, our faculty go and visit them while they're working in their summer internships, try to speak to their managers, try to see what are the skill gaps that they are seeing. So we see the summer internship actually increasing in importance a lot. Secondly, I think the individual development plan that we make with our students, we work with a lot of industry mentors as well. Now, these industry mentors are usually our alumni who spent 5 to 10 years in industry, and they come back from the companies who have been our regular recruiters. So there we get the student gets a much more one-on-one perspective of what role am I preparing for, or what are the set of roles I'm preparing for, and from a person who's doing a similar role 5 years down the line, what are the skill gaps that I see. So I think it's about spending more time with industry, understanding each other as individuals, as people, and giving that sort of importance to the process rather than just being engaged on the end of your 2 years for final placement.
Well, completely. I think the development needs to happen throughout the course of education and not just right at the end, as you mentioned. And now, going back to AI, we've discussed a lot about this. Shreevats, I'll also go to Ramya with this question. Ramya, according to you, how can higher education institutions keep pace with the rapid rise of Gen AI as a core industry skill and ensure that their degree programs remain agile, scalable, and aligned with evolving job market demands?
Thanks for asking that question, Shilpa. What we see at Coursera in the 100 plus universities that in this country that we work with is that there is a growing acknowledgement and acceptance that Gen AI in higher education can potentially impact four different dimensions for a university. First is the teaching and learning pedagogy, like Srivats himself highlighted. The second is faculty capacity building and research. The third is a lot of productivity gain in academic administration. And then all of these culminate in learner outcomes. So, across all of these four dimensions, a higher educational institution looks at how they can use Gen AI, ride the wave of Gen AI, and make it a very core capability for them so that when their students graduate from their degree programs, they remain agile, scalable, etc and in line with the evolving skills landscape. Now, because employers are increasingly shifting to wanting to hire graduates who have Gen AI credentials versus not, it's very important for all institutions to start looking at industry as very core partners to their curricula. And one of the things that we do at Coursera is that we offer a range of professional certificates, especially focused on AI and Gen AI, and these can be embedded into the curriculum, which makes the university curriculum agile and also helps students get degrees that continue to stay very relevant. In fact, recently we ran a series of workshops with a few universities where we said Gen AI is not something we should look at as something to be feared with fearful skepticism, but with cautious optimism, right? And to make that change, it's very important to pull along the faculty. So, another thing a university can focus on as they build their own Gen AI capability for themselves and their students is to do investments in faculty change management as well. We run a workshop with universities where we tell them to think about four different prompts, if you will, to borrow a phrase from Gen AI. The first prompt is, can you work with a Gen AI playground itself and put these four questions, right? The first one is, give context of your university and ask the Gen AI model to look at what can change. The second prompt is, can you ask the Gen AI model, please anticipate on my behalf how knowledge, skills, and abilities of students need to change in India to meet the needs of the employers? And you'll be fascinated by the kind of responses you get. The third question which universities can ask a model like ChatGPT is, can you act like a curriculum specialist and tell me how I should change my curricula to meet the evolving needs of industry? And finally, get into a change management execution mode and say, can you be a change manager for me, for my university, and tell me how to implement these changes into the degree program? And I think what we will see across is one of the biggest starting points for a university to embed Gen AI into its teaching and learning process is to have a blueprint that starts with a governance or a policy. Once that is in place, and once you have a partner like Coursera to give you that Gen AI content and credentials, and you upskill your faculty, then you are well on your way to harnessing Gen AI in higher ed to give productivity gains across the four dimensions I mentioned: teaching, learning, research, academic administration, and finally, student outcomes.
It's fantastic, and thank you for sharing those prompts with us, Ramya. Really goes to show that if you know the right questions to ask,
Yeah.
now you can have the whole world at your fingertips, and that's something that Shreevats emphasized as well. Working with students now to make sure that they're using Chat GPT or Gen AI in the right format, because we can't prevent students from using them, and there's no need to. We have to make sure that they're asking the right questions, helping them with prompt engineering, and also making sure that their core skills remain intact. And with this, we're wrapping up this conversation. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much to both our speakers. A big thank you to them for sharing their vision and actionable insights. Their work not only inspires institutions to evolve, but also empowers learners to thrive in an ever changing world. Let's carry forward this conversation with intention, curiosity, and a shared goal of shaping a smarter, more inclusive future of education.
Thank you.
Thank you.